fully trusted.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm saying compared to
Yeah.
the other stuff.
Okay. 7 o'clock. Okay, I'd like to bring the Tuesday, August 12th, 2025 Planning Board meeting to order. Casey, if you could do roll call, please.
Talia Moked,
Here.
Rob Klein,
Here.
Jim Callahan,
Here.
Bob Doherty,
Here.
Dave Edmonds,
Here.
Claudia Bolgen,
Here.
Kevin Donovan.
Yeah.
And just before the meeting starts, please silence your cell phones and note that this meeting is being recorded. First order of business here is we have a new member of the planning board, Talia Moked, and I'd like to welcome her aboard. And any questions, you can feel free to ask anybody.
Thank you.
Oh, no, especially Claudia. All right, first thing up, there are no subdivision approvals. Not required. There is no public hearings. The presentation on the housing production plan has been canceled for tonight. We'll do that another time. So we're going to go right to definitive subdivision status review. And we're going to skip down to D and do Sherman Terrace first. John?
Let's see, let me find that on our director's report, and I'll give you an update. Let's see here. As I reported to the board in the director's report, since our last meeting, when we talked about this subdivision, the one remaining outstanding issue for this project was the construction of the turnaround area. And as reported to the board for tonight, Vice Chairman Jim Callahan went to the subdivision with the developer's representative. And I don't know if you want to address the board on your finding there.
Sure. There's a few outstanding items. The materials used for the stabilization for the soils was the wrong material initially. That was removed and replaced in kind with the right material. Product was shown and the literature has been submitted. The stone bound, which was at the front at the asphalt line of the two separated lots, was not able to go in as originally planned. The board voted to accept the use of a railroad spike in lieu of a stone bound. That has been the last item installed. The dimensional properties for the turnaround itself were rearranged in the reconstruction and are to the dimensional properties on the original subdivision plan, which was minor modification from their design engineer to meet the criteria because of some construction activities along the way, which mainly was the need for a retaining wall, which they had to shift things just slightly, a foot or so, kept it where it was originally intended for 95% of the location, just a matter of turning of angles to get the overall length and width. So the four items that are out there, I believe, are all taken care of, and knowing the activities involved, that's why I volunteered to go out there on behalf of the board to verify, to try and streamline the process. So thankfully, everything is done, in my opinion, met the criteria, what we had outstanding from their engineer records documents. Keeping in mind the engineer record is the sole source for us verifying that all the activities are done to what was on the subdivision plans.
Excellent. Any questions of Jim? Seeing no questions, do I have a motion? Yes, John?
Yeah, I just want to point out further in the report, I did execute for the board, for the board's signature and the consideration, Form L, and that's a certificate of completion and release of the municipal interest in the subdivision performance security. It's kind of a long draft motion, but it incorporates all of the necessary action of the board to, sign off completely on this subdivision. So if the board doesn't have any further discussion or review, that draft motion is before the board for someone to make, second and vote on.
Anyone?
I would make a motion to adopt the draft motion in the materials.
Second with a comment.
Motion made by Claudia to accept the draft motion, seconded by Dave with a comment.
I'd like to thank Jim for taking this on and doing it and saving me walking around in the heat of the summer. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. Yep.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
Second, we got second, David. Yep.
7-4, 0 against. You for?
That's for, yeah.
Oh, okay. You got that, John?
I got it. There we
Okay.
go. Great.
Excellent. All right, all set. Up next, Highview Estates. Our favorite.
Most of these reviews of subdivisions are short and sweet. In this particular subdivision, the board, back in the early spring, reviewed with the applicant a proposal to shorten the length of the cul-de-sac down to 400 feet approximately, instead of going through the whole width of the power line easement that's associated with the subdivision. They were going to cut the roadway short to what will be geographically the northern border of the Eversource easement, power line easement. Those plans, although they've been working on them, they weren't ready for tonight's meeting, and they've asked that the board consider allowing them to come in September. And they really can't commit to either the first or the second meeting at this time, but they did say they'd be ready in September. So if the board will allow, I'll schedule the plans for the next regular meeting once the plans are actually submitted.
Okay.
John, do you need a vote, or do you just want general acquiescence?
Acquiescence is fine.
Alrighty.
Great.
Equally acquiesce.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, up next, 43 Winter Street.
43 Winter Street. I do want to report that I visited the site a couple of times since our last meeting, and we haven't met since May. And I've been talking with the building commissioner about the progress also. But to date, 2 of the 4 houses involved with this subdivision are complete. Another one is under construction, it's weather tight, and there's 1 remaining building permit pending at this time. But the roadway is up to binder grade, meaning the subgrade's been done, all the utilities are in. The sidewalk remains to be constructed, and a lot of shoulder work remains. But we have a surety in place, and everything's progressing. There's a possibility it might be done by the end of this construction season. Not that the construction seasons actually stop anytime during the winter anymore.
Through the chair.
Yes, please.
John, what is the completion date of the subdivision as currently extended?
It's currently extended, that'll probably end up being in the 2027 year, because they're in that time frame that was extended by the state statute.
I see. Okay. So they're not in any danger of expiring the subdivision?
No, no,
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you.
yep.
I mean, technically, everything that's going on was extended for the 2 years, correct?
Correct, yeah, yeah.
Time is flying. So,
Especially when you're
FYI.
trying to build a subdivision, it's always flying.
Yeah, 2 years is a very short time. Cliffside Terrace.
Cliffside Terrace, as I reported in the staff report, we had a preliminary pre-construction meeting. There is a new owner of the property. They're taking into consideration the exorbitant cost of building the proposed roadway and the development of the lots, taking into consideration, it's really a ledge outcropping. It's pretty much the entirety of that property. It's ledge. So they're actually assessing the approved plan and possibly in the future coming in with modifications for the board to consider. Kind of inevitable when you're working with that much ledge that, it just becomes uneconomical, infeasible to try to construct something like that. So they're thinking about modifying it, and we'll know pretty soon whether they'll come in or not with the modification. And, whether it's going to entail a new public hearing, in all likelihood it will. But just giving you a flag on that one. Okay.
Any questions for John?
Well, John, the name says it all.
Yeah, it's a rock.
Through the chair,
Yes.
John, do you happen to know whether the developer / new owner is an experienced developer?
Probably not, because a lot of experienced developers, they exist around here. They never looked at it, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, everybody that's been on here long enough knows that when you're talking about ledge, you're talking about blasting, and there's nothing more difficult to develop and more costly. And we end up, hearing all about it. And we do.
David?
Through the chair to John, how many units is this?
Originally approved for 7. So, I think we'll be dealing with it in the fall months, in all likelihood.
I think we might be dealing with it over my next 4 birthdays.
Yeah. I'd say for sure. Even a small amount of ledge, say 10,000 square feet, takes a long time to chisel out and make into a building envelope, or to put a driveway in. Never mind, a formal roadway with building envelopes for 7 lots. I mean, at least 2 of them have houses on them now. One's coming down, but there's just a lot of work involved with it, and it's heavy-duty work. It's not light work. So, that's it.
Anything else?
If anybody has any questions concerning any other subdivisions, I'll help hopefully answer the questions for you.
Okay, so now we get right to the planning board director's updates. The first item on there is adopt procedural rules governing the planning board. So hopefully, everybody had a chance to read, sent out to them. Everybody that was involved, Claudia, I think you guys did a great job. I thought it looked great.
And I signed off on everything, and I corrected the copy in the edit that Claudia suggested, that being the last one. Well, I read through it again today and found one last one. So on page 10 of 10, and this is attached Exhibit D, and it's the very last paragraph, and it's the first sentence, or first line of that paragraph at the end. So that first line reads, if everybody's on page 10 of 10, last paragraph, section 8, it reads, "The foregoing procedural rules and regulations governing the planning board and appendices are hereby adopted. Well, if you'll recall, there are no appendices included with these rules and procedures of procedure. So if you would allow me to make this one last edit, and that would be to strike through and eliminate "and appendices." So that sentence would read, "The foregoing procedural rules and regulations governing the planning board are hereby adopted this day, 12th of August." So if I can make that change, then that would be the final edit that I found necessary to go to a final published document. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Good
Okay.
catch. So are we ready for a motion?
We are.
Yes.
So I would make a motion to adopt the proposed motion given to us in the materials, only that the procedural rules governing the planning board dated August 12th, 2025, as amended on page 10, as discussed, are adopted. So other than that, I would make that motion.
Second with a comment.
Motion by Claudia, seconded by Dave with comment.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of these types of things in my career. Thank you. Thank you. Because you made it easy, because you did all the work.
Of course, my pleasure.
See, twice, 2 thank yous in one meeting.
Keeper.
Take the rest of the year off.
All right, so we got a motion by Claudia, second by Dave. All those in favor of adopting it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7-0 carries.
All right, the planning board has rules for the
We
first
do.
time in what, 30-something years?
Yeah.
Nice work, everyone.
They've always been sitting there, haven't they? They just...
It was more sort of course of conduct there. But
Now you can draw it in writing.
now we have it in writing.
And we did get, as everybody saw, we did get the minutes at a meeting, if we need them. If we ever need them, we can limit, you know, and Mark said it was okay. So we're good with that.
May want to explain that comment, because not everybody was here during the time.
Well, I think, I don't know, Rob, were you here when we talked about that? So in a public hearing, we were talking about whether or not you can restrict people from speaking over a period of time. So, you know, if you've got 100 people in the room and you want to let everybody have an opportunity to speak, you may have to set a parameter and say, okay, everybody can speak, but you have 5 minutes. If you have anything else that you want to add to that, you can send a letter in writing to the planning board office. And we weren't sure, so we had the city solicitor give us their opinion as to whether or not they thought we could do something like that, and he came back and said he thinks we can. Honestly, up to this point, it's, as long as I've been on it, it's never happened. I don't know if it's ever happened with you guys, because you've been a little longer, but,
There were a few times we wanted to go,
well, yeah, we did, but we
but we
didn't.
couldn't.
So now we can, but hopefully we'll never have to. So that's what that is all about. Okay, John, update on the downtown revitalization plan.
Yeah. Now, all of these updates really pertain to all the planning that's been going on over the last several months, and we're now under contract. The planning office is under contract with these consultants to accomplish all of these planning tasks. So I would like Casey to engage with us in this conversation and whatever questions you may have. But the first one is the update on the downtown Woburn enhancement planning study. You know, just for historical purposes, and for many of the board members that have been on the board for many years, a lot of this planning study has to do with making sure that we're covering our bases with the historical plans and implementation of projects that have taken place, especially over the last 30 years downtown. I'm talking about the post-initial urban renewal era of the 60s and 70s in downtown, and more talking about what has taken place over the last 30 years, and preferably the last 25 years, with the redevelopment authority being assigned to be the shepherds of rejuvenating downtown. So over the last 30 years, you've had facade improvement programs involving downtown storefronts, and very successful program in its day. Sign improvement program, that was another one that improved a lot of the signage in downtown Woburn. There's been physical improvements to the public right-of-way, a lot of landscaping improvements, curbing improvements, sidewalks, handicap accessibility. The city took a long time trying to develop plans for Magazine Hill parking area, and only to fall short in that effort. And the city spent many years, the redevelopment authority did anyway, spent many years trying to plan for that. The update on that particular issue is that the city, with its own efforts, is presently transforming that Magazine Hill area, which was a blighted area for years and years and years, into a parking lot. And that work continues. But in all likelihood, the city will end up creating at least 40 parking spaces and greatly improving the access to Magazine Hill on Mann's Court. And there's also discussion of possibly making a better pedestrian corridor through the existing driveway, I'll call it a driveway, just opposite Everett Street. So the city's committed to that. The mayor's made it a priority to hopefully complete that project by the end of this year. So that's the update with that particular project. But with this study is going to analyze what has been done to date, but what needs to be accomplished moving forward so that downtown Woburn becomes more sustainable than what already exists. There's a better future for downtown, a more vibrant future for downtown, and downtowns everywhere really take a lot of community attention. A lot of work has to go into making sure that the downtowns remain clean, well-kept, landscaped. That's all maintenance issues. But to try to attract economic development activity downtown is an ongoing task, because storefronts close from time to time, and we do have a couple of empty storefronts down there right now that Casey, as the economic development manager, is actively engaged in the marketing community to try to attract businesses downtown to fill those empty storefronts. Not that there are a lot right now, but there are several. So it's always a challenge to make sure a town's downtown, which is usually the hub and the focal point of a community, and it really represents so much to a community. We're fortunate, City of Woburn residents, that we have such a, I'd say, central downtown area that everybody knows, who knows anything about Woburn, that is downtown. It's not a hidden area of the city, it's a prominent area of the city, and it has government services, public services such as a library. It has a lot of retail storefront, restaurants. There's a lot more activity now, basically, than there was 30 years ago. And that was through the efforts of the redevelopment authority, mainly, but with the cooperation of succeeding administrations and the longstanding commitment of the city council members and this planning board. So it's a big, big team effort of city officials, city residents, really working together in a voluntary effort, and staff-wise, employees of the city, working to make sure downtown Woburn gives a great representation of who we are as a community. And I don't want to forget the Parks and Recreation, who are in charge of maintaining the common, and all the private landscaping companies that take care of the islands. For the most part, those areas are real shining areas of the downtown area as far as, presenting well for the community. So that's the update. Casey, if you like to
Yeah, I
add
can jump in
anything.
briefly. So the city received a $100,000 grant from the Community One Stop for Growth grant program, which is run through the Office of Economic Development. We recently hired a consulting firm, a group of 2 firms that are teaming together on this called Redgate and SGA. They're both a little bit more on the commercial development side, so it's really just bringing like an interesting perspective. And the idea of this grant is really to kind of be a visioning process, like John said, going out to the community and the stakeholders and identifying like what do people want to see in Woburn Center, and then looking internally to figure out kind of what those roadblocks are, whether it's our zoning that's holding back certain development or, certain market constraints. And then also kind of looking at downtowns in light of changing retail environment. It's not the same as it used to be. You can just go on Amazon and buy whatever you want. So we're trying to identify other ways and methods to bring people downtown and keep them engaged. So the consultant team is providing kind of an initial update to the redevelopment authority tomorrow and kind of kicking off that visioning process. And we expect this to be the 9 to 12 month process, so we'll have plenty of time to update you as it moves forward. It's really just getting started.
Thank you, Casey.
Yeah, and it's an important master plan for the downtown area. The city really hasn't done a master plan in quite a while. And as we all know, in a few years' time, so many things change. And, since the era of COVID, which only really was a few short years ago, there's been a lot of change. And we're trying to adapt to that constant change of, the retail sector, the restaurant sector, and just trying to make sure that downtown remains a vibrant, community-focused, active-filled area. So that's that for that one. And it's going along really well so far.
The chair, John.
Yeah.
What about the traffic circle? They were looking at redoing the traffic.
Yeah.
Well, let's go right to
Yeah.
number E.
Yeah.
Letter E, letter E, which is update on Main Street traffic safety improvement plan. That would be John or Casey.
We'll both.
Yeah,
Do
kick
it.
it off.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll start off and Casey can add to it for sure, I guarantee you, because we've spent so much time on this subject over the last year and a half since I came back. And it's, without a doubt, it's the biggest infrastructure improvement project the city's been engaged in for the downtown area, especially in many, many years. The last time the city of Woburn engaged in a traffic improvement project or program was back in the 60s, called Topics, and it extended into the early 70s. Well, back then they did a lot of traffic improvements, thinking that they were going to make things better, and what they found out, the structural improvements, some of them had to really go. They had to take them out of the roadway systems right away. What did remain from Topics are all the islands that exist in and around the common area. So you have that island right out at the Main Street, Montfield Ave, Common Street. There's an island right there. That's from Topics. The other island that's right outside of City Hall here, that's a Topics island. And the one down at the intersection of Wynn Street, that's a Topics island. Those did work really well in better channeling traffic. And there was some rerouting of traffic back in that era that remained in place. This is a huge undertaking, and the state has adopted this project mainly because downtown Woburn is ranked as one of the top 200 difficult vehicular pedestrian networks of a downtown area in the Commonwealth. So there's too many accidents that happen vehicle-wise. There's too many pedestrian vehicle incidents that happen. So the primary focus for this improvement project is to make the traveling for vehicles and pedestrians a safer endeavor for locals as well as people that come into Woburn and are not familiar. You know, you almost have to be a native, if you think about it, to be comfortable driving through Woburn, trying to figure out where to go. And in any given day, you have cars coming right across Wynn Street, heading southbound directly on Main Street, because that's what people would typically do. You know, you don't enter an intersection like that and be forced to go right, you know, from Wynn Street onto, the leg of Pleasant Street, and then make the rotary around to try to go southbound on Main Street. So we're all used to it because we live here, but can you imagine, you know, somebody coming from out of town, not familiar? It's like, what do I do? You know, so people do come down Montville Avenue, as another example, and just go straight through in front of City Hall. I mean, can you imagine? There's 4 lanes of traffic coming right at you and you're going the wrong way. So things like that happen almost on a daily basis. And, you know, what this project is going to try to do is better, or create a much better, safer flow of traffic with more well-structured intersections. The project is approaching the 25% design phase, and it's expected to get to that completion date or phase by the end of September, and we'll have another public hearing in these chambers. You know, that's not a date set in cement. There's a lot of work that's still going on, discussions relative to the proper flow of traffic, what needs to be done at the intersections, whether we're going to have left-hand turns or right-hand turns, or, you know, so there's a lot of work that still needs to be ironed out, and that's going to be the task of planning officials, city council officials, the engineers working on the project, and Casey and our new engineer are fully engaged in this process, and it's it truly is a big project. And you know, right now it's on the tip for FY '29, meaning construction may start as early as 2030. May start. Everything's tentative when you're talking about a project like this. Take it away, Casey.
I don't have that much to add. I was just going to say, you know, the city is responsible to get the project to 25% design, and then we have that design public hearing, and then essentially the city hands off the project to the state to kind of implement. So we're really crossing all our T's and dotting all our I's right now. We're progressing really quickly right now to 25%, and then that will go off to the state to kind of fine tune the plans.
And we do have a real exceptional group of engineers as our consultants that are designing this project. And I can't believe all the work they've done to date. And they've got a lot more to do, but there's a lot of progress being made. And we're really grateful about that. And that's all I have.
Hopefully they're taking into consideration what traffic is gonna be like in 2029.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like the Big Dig, when they did that, they didn't take any consideration as to what traffic was gonna be like when they finished it, to the point when it was done, the traffic was as bad as it was before they started.
Yeah. You know, some you might call them strange traffic projections, but, you know, as the baby boomer generation continues to get older, the less they come out during the commuter hours, which is, you know, the two focal points of congestion are AM and PM congestion. You know, roadway capacities exist outside of those 2 periods of time every Monday through Friday. And then as the population ages, they're not really expecting, you know, vast increases in the percentage of vehicles on the road. And then, you know, hopefully someday they get a better control on this autonomous vehicle situation. You know, the last rollout with our friend Elon, it didn't go so well. It didn't go as well as expected, so they're back at the drawing board again. But someday those autonomous vehicles will dominate the roadway scene. These are the planning projections into the future, and not that distant future. And, you know, we as individuals, again, I got to caution, you know, people got, you're out of your mind. But, you know, this is what they're planning for, is that we aren't really gonna need cars anymore, because wherever we wanna go, just like we order something on Amazon, we order the vehicle to pick us up, drop us off at the shopping center, wherever we're doing, getting our groceries, and then the car shows up when we're done. You just program it in your computer and your phone, and the car shows up and picks you up with your groceries and brings you home. In effect, there's not going to be a great need for everybody to own a car, or two, or three. And that's going to lessen the amount of vehicle trips on the roadways. So there's a lot of planning going on with traffic engineers, trying to project out, what our roadway capacities are going to have to be in the future. They may not be as big and as wide as we think they are, or think they need to be. And, only the future can really tell us what's going to happen.
John, one of the problems with traffic engineers is they think traffic is math, and we all know it's psychology. But the truth is, on these self-driving vehicles, they cannot build the program to drive until they've experienced every possible situation, which means they have to have lots of accidents.
Yeah.
So that data is put, no, that's a fact, because
Yeah.
I've read a report on it. They have to use that to say, okay, now we don't do that. And you wonder, how long does that go on until they reach that point where it works? Or people say, the hell with this, there's too many accidents with these self-driving vehicles. So it's going to be an interesting.
Yeah. The other thing is, we can tell, we've experienced it. The state, Massachusetts, is fully engaged, and many other states are, in multifamily developments close to transit. So when you live in a community such as that, where you're able to get to your work location pretty close to where you live, or you're close to transit, a lot of that need to have a vehicle isn't there anymore.
But what you will have to look out for as the planning director is I saw a thing that was showing a parking lot where they put these vehicles, and everybody who lived in the area hated it because they made noises and they lit up and they did all this stuff at all hours of the day and the night. It's because they get called and they go. So, at some point, it might be a thought the city has to decide, if that comes to Woburn, where do we place it that has the least amount of impact on the citizens? So put that in your Rolodex.
Yeah.
You don't know what a
It's
Rolodex is.
it's the one thing why I love this profession so much, because every day is something new that needs to be planned for. There's no assembly line that you go to and do the same thing. It's always something new.
Traffic is a big problem.
Yeah.
Roads weren't built for the amount of cars that are on them today, and that's not gonna change.
You know what does help?
Ever.
You know what does help?
Start, like the Jetsons, we start flying through the air and stuff like that, or Back to the Future or something. That's the only time it's gonna change, because there's just too many cars on the road. I mean, you get up on 128 on a Saturday morning or a Sunday, you can't go anywhere. And you mentioned the baby boomers. Well, the thing with the boomers, which I am a baby boomer, is that we're retired, so we're out on the road more. And we get to see what is happening with the roads, and the fact that the cars cannot handle the amount of traffic on the roads today. And that's everywhere. That's Woburn Center. Woburn Center can't handle traffic. Sometimes, you see how far it's backed up sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's backed up all the way past St. Charles and down that way there. It just can't handle the amount of traffic.
Go to North Woburn.
Going from here to through
Yes.
North Woburn
Yeah.
into Wilmington, you can't. I leave my house sometimes to go someplace. It might take me 10 to 15 minutes just to get out of Woburn alone. Just 10 to 15 minutes, and it's like, this is a nightmare. And
I try to be as creative as possible, point A to point B, wherever I'm going, and try to realize, well, I'm not going to go on 128 at this hour. I'm not going to go into Boston. I'm not going to the beach on 128. So I'll meander my way up through 62. You know, I have beautiful,
You can't go anywhere.
beautiful routes.
And the thing with the GPS, John, is you think you're the only one going that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But the GPS is telling everybody else to go the same way. So now you get on 62, like, I'm cutting down from 128 to try to get to Woburn, like, go over to 93. So I got on 62 all the way. I think everybody else was on 62 too. It was
Yeah, it-
That's the same thing when the news says,
change.
there's an accident on 128, and you can get around it by getting on Route 28. Everybody goes on
Oh,
Route
yeah.
28.
Yeah, you know when there's an accident in Woburn, and it's usually the PM hours. You know there's an accident on 93, because Main Street is just backed up to no end. Lexington Street's backed up for miles. You know.
Good thing we don't have to drive Route 24, because there's accidents on Route 24 every single day. Rob?
Just a couple quick questions regarding the public hearing for this downtown plan. Is that hosted by the council? Or is it, like, who hosts that meeting?
Well, it'll be a public meeting that'll be advertised. Everyone from the public will be invited. It'll be hosted by, in all likelihood, the city council.
The formal
Mayor.
hearing will be a MassDOT public hearing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then, well, they'll announce that
Yeah, oh, yeah.
soonish, I assume?
Yeah.
We highly recommend if you have any comments or questions, provide them kind of before the 25% hearing. That's not really the place to be tweaking it.
Right, right.
We're happy to send the updated plan around too if you all haven't seen it.
So, John, what do you think it'd cost?
The cost
Well,
of
if it just-
the Main Street project?
Yeah, I mean, you have a good sense of this kind of stuff.
Projections are, it could be as much as 30 million by the time construction starts. So, like I said, the last public hearing, I blurted out, nothing in writing, but I said, this is a once in 3 lifetimes opportunity to improve, the downtown roadway system.
I think you're being very generous on that.
Yeah.
Right now, the average cost of a new high school is $300 million. So think about what we paid 15 years ago, $65 million. And it's 5 times, so you're talking 4 or 5 years from now.
I got to correct you on that. I think the high school now is 25 years old,
Oh, is it that
at
long?
least. Yeah.
Wow.
I think it already needs a new roof, maybe. No, I'm not, I didn't say that, but,
Amazing.
roofs don't last
I had
forever.
hair when they built that school, so
Yeah.
it is a long time.
I did.
The asphalt might cost 30 million when they do that.
All right, moving along here in the same area, the update on the downtown parking management plan.
This particular plan is well underway and actually nearing completion. Relative to the public presentation for input, addressing concerns and comments. But there's a lot of really interesting, up-to-date fun facts involved with this particular study. In identifying every parking area in and around the downtown area, how much utilization is taking place on a daily basis, percentage of open spaces all throughout the day on an average, daily use. What we're hoping for is that we're going to have a palatable solution to what many people consider we don't have enough parking. There's a lot more parking available for public, and it's free right now, than a lot of people realize. You may have to walk a little bit, but there is accessible public parking. And again, part of this roadway improvement project that we're going to put in place in a few years, it's going to be a lot safer to be able to cross the street and access the common. So pedestrians will be able to more easily park somewhere and more easily and safely get to their destinations, whether it's a restaurant, the banks, coming to City Hall or the district court. There's just so many safety improvements associated with it, but there are also safety improvements that we're going to implement very soon. Casey, I don't know if you want to start interjecting on this
No,
one.
I'll just add. So the same company that's doing the downtown traffic improvement project is doing the parking management plan. About it, last October, they did really in-depth counts of parking. I think they did 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and did heat maps for each of the public parking lots and on-street parking, and they found really fascinating data, but they found that the issue that we have is not necessarily capacity, but it's turnover. In a downtown area, ideally you want to have 10 to 15% of your spots open at any one time, and we're not achieving that turnover at this point. So that's really kind of the pinpoint for parking in the center. It's not necessarily capacity. So the consultant's working on some strategies to help create that turnover. So the next step, like John said, is to bring it to a city council meeting, present kind of the menu of options to help create that turnover, as well as separating long-term and short-term parking. So right now we're having people park all day long, and there is a need for some people to park all day long, but it shouldn't be, the best spot on Main Street. So creating that turnover and then separating long-term and short-term parking are really the goals. So hopefully this fall we'll have kind of the draft recommendations that we'll bring forward for consideration.
Unveiling to the public so we can start receiving input.
And I should add, that was funded by a state earmark from Representative Rich Haggerty. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
all of these studies, we've been really fortunate in acquiring state funding. So none of these studies have included, local funding. So our state rep Haggerty's been really instrumental in acquiring the funding necessary to do these studies. The one thing when you're a planner, you love to do these studies, but a lot of times you can't find those local funds within a community's budget. It just doesn't happen. But we've been really fortunate to acquire these, and through seeking out of grants. Now that the city has a grant writer focus on acquiring grants, we've been able to get a lot of money coming in our way of late. Hopefully we can keep it going, because these are important studies to accomplish and implement the results of. And again, it all hinges on receiving a lot of public input. We don't want to start implementing improvements that nobody likes, nobody agrees to, nobody has any idea of. So we want to, a lot of these studies have a lot of public input processes involved with it. I don't know if anybody took that Survey Monkey survey leading up to tonight on the housing production plan. That was one of the links in the report. But if you like surveys, it's a really good one, actually. And it's your chance to voice your opinion concerning the housing production plan update.
Casey, do you know what they consider short-term parking?
Generally like under 2 or 3 hours.
Okay. Because the majority of things in the center are restaurants.
Right.
So they're going to be there for at least 2 hours. But, okay, so they put that as.
Yeah, and then also identifying places for even, shorter term, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, just to run in
Yeah.
and grab something, identifying key locations for that.
Like most communities, the post-PM hours, when people are dining out at restaurants, it's not critical that there's a turnover during those hours. It's during the day.
Okay, moving along to the update on the new Boston Street opportunity.
This is a good one. Some years ago now, we believe it was 1995, 96, it was recognized by the city and the Woburn Redevelopment Authority that they achieved the goals, the mission of the Redevelopment Authority in transforming that entire North Woburn area, which consisted of 1,800 acres of land, which was mainly made up of, back in the 50s, of gravel pits that were created with the building of Logan Airport, 93, 128. There's just a lot of beautiful gravel up there. Well, a lot of that section of gravel from Mishawam Road all the way to the Wilmington line, including Commerce Way, that was all beautiful sand for the most part. And all those materials, aggregate materials, were used for those big projects in Boston and all the big highway projects. So there was nothing up there to really speak of. There were piggeries up in that area, and even along the 128 corridor, Woburn. You had old dump sites. Wasn't really any economic development in that entire area. So the redevelopment authority did get involved. The city of Woburn adopted the authority, and over the 70s and 80s, 90s, all of that industrial complex that exists today started way back when. And the redevelopment authority, after three and a half, 4 decades, completed their mission, and that was in 95, 96. When they completed the mission, they had a certain amount of funds left, and to the tune of $600,000 they had in their coffers, operation coffers. They transferred those funds into the redevelopment authority efforts involving the downtown Woburn area. And the downtown Woburn area, again, this was in 95, 96, the beginning of the Bob Dever administration. They focused in on revitalizing downtown to carry it forward to the extent possible with those fundings, which included the hiring of an executive director by the name of Don Borschelt, who did an incredible job of organizing the downtown and creating, these special locations that resulted from that particular era, the late 90s and the early part of this century. Marlowe Park is probably the best example of an improvement project in downtown in many, many years, with the waterfall feature, the bar and grill. Why do I? The Brickyard. My favorite place down there. I always get stumped by that name, but in any event, they lease that from the redevelopment authority. The redevelopment authority owns that property. So the Brickyard leases that space from them, and they manage that property. In lieu of going up on that rent this year, I'm just giving you an example, we contracted with them this year to make sure they police and clean that area and keep it clean, and they've done a great job, as opposed to years past where nobody was really designated to keep that area clean, and now they've done a great job this year in keeping that area clean. But to just go back, all during the late 90s, early part of this century, up until 2009, the redevelopment authority, through the acquisition of CDBG grants, acquired a lot of funding for those facade improvements, the signage improvements, the Planning for magazine, hill parking, that didn't happen, but they made improvements to the Walnut Street parking lot. And part of that Marlowe Park was that access to that parking lot through that staircase. Those were improvements that took place during that era. Not so much has happened in the downtown area since the '09, because most of the amenities that were put in place as a result of I'll call it the Borschelt era, the Dever era, Mayor Curran, those improvements were achieved by the redevelopment authority. So, now we're trying as a city to plan for the next phase of what we want as a community downtown to become. We want to continue improving it, making it more sustainable and viable for, retail operations and for restaurant operations, just to make sure that all the storefronts from here on out remain occupied and successful for the entrepreneurs, the business owners that run the businesses down there. So right now, the redevelopment authority is refocused through the efforts of the mayor and really planning for the next future chapter of downtown. And we're really just in the midst of kicking off this master plan of downtown right now. Tomorrow, we have a redevelopment authority meeting, and the consultants are coming in to go over this plan with the redevelopment authority. And our plan, Casey and I, working with the mayor and other people in city government, we really want the redevelopment authority to be a main part of this master plan study so that they're fully engaged in the potential for this study to be really meaningful for the city and to really set the course and set the plate for the future, and for the future to be even better than what exists down there today, downtown today. So that's what this study is all about. Casey?
Yeah, I think he was mentioning downtown, but really, it's not, this new Boston Street study is not so dissimilar from our downtown study.
Oh, are we talking about the new Boston Street?
Yeah.
Oh, why didn't you shut me up? I'm so
You're on a
focused on
roll.
downtown.
But essentially, it's the same type of study where
Sorry
the
about
city
that.
has been in this reactive position to developers over the years, and this will put us in a proactive position. So it's it's an in-depth study on the zoning constraints, infrastructure constraints, and then market demands in the new Boston Street area. And they will identify, potential zoning recommendations and like infrastructure updates that would be required to help unlock like the growth of the potential of the development up there. I think we're already naturally seeing a lot of development because of the new bridge that's going to be open, less than a year from now. But this will just put us in a really proactive, like ready position to dictate to developers what the city wants to see out there rather than vice versa. And this was a $115,000 grant that was won through the Community One Stop program again. And we're working with RKG Associates, that's a national planning firm. And then they've contracted with a infrastructure company, a engineering firm, and then a specific zoning firm. So we're excited. That one's been going for a few weeks now, but we expect more like robust public engagement this fall.
Why I steered myself back downtown.
You got going on the WRA, so I could see
there's so
where
many
you feel
studies
so
going
good.
on. But this one up in North Woburn, it really is special because what we're trying to do is plan for a higher, brighter future. Right now, there's a lot of first-generation development that exists there. Not that it's bad or anything, but there's higher economic development activity that we can be planning for, and Cabot and Forbes, what they've been permitted for already on the New England residence site, they have that multifamily development that's ready to be occupied. Actually, I guess a few of the units are already occupied. 216 New Boston Street, which is just south of that site, that now is poised to start. One of the properties, not Zero New Boston Street, but that's another one that's on the other side of the tracks on the Wilmington line. That's another multifamily development that's been permitted, but we're trying to figure out the fine tuning of that particular project. The one project that is not going to happen is the one at the intersection of Merrimack Street and New Boston Street. Casey, I don't know if you want to tell the story of that one, right at the intersection. It was purchased by Waste Management.
Yeah. They're still, that site was permitted for a large lab life science building, and I think they're kind of reworking, or they've divided the land and are kind of working on how they can move forward with the project in some capacity. But
To simplify it, we're really trying to plan for a higher, better, brighter future for that whole area of the city, that sector of the Industriplex site.
You mean the people don't want to look out of the windows of their expensive condos or trash trucks?
Something to that effect. It takes a lot of work to do stuff like that, because it just doesn't happen overnight. But, yeah, again, it's another exciting study that we wouldn't be engaged in if it wasn't for this outside sources that we've been lucky enough to acquire. Sorry about being so focused on
I
downtown,
could
but
see you, I was like, he's going to circle back. He's talking about WRA. It's going to go back.
and it's been like that for a long time.
Yeah. We have a lot of plans going on right now. It's
Yeah.
getting complicated.
Yeah, and there's actually a lot more stuff that we're not even talking about. Complete Streets program, there's a traffic improvement program, or project right now going on Cambridge Road, in front of the Woburn Plaza there, and that's all because of safety. You know, there was a terrible accident there last year, and the state has come in working with our state reps, and, you know, just like that, implementing a much-needed safety improvement project over there in 1 year. I
John,
mean,
you make me feel good because I'm the old guy on the board, and you just proved that I'm not the only one who talks in circles sometimes.
It was, you know, because we haven't met since May, too, it's like, I just want to make sure you guys all know that we're working, you know? So, we wanted to cram as much as we could in tonight for you guys, so.
Jimmy?
Yes, so Casey, John, New Boston Street, the whole industrial complex up there, which when I first started was Commerce Way overlay. That whole area was envisioned to be a circular type of operation if the bridge ever went into place, and here we are within a year of completion. The Waste Management tract of land, they purchased it from Cabot and Forbes, and now they're going to be trucking between Woburn up to Wilmington to a new transfer station that just got approved upon. So our trucking routes and our planning and delineation, in my opinion, between the residential side of things and the industrial, maybe the city of Woburn can get it right this time, where we do not traverse through a residential area to gain access into an industrial, which means School Street and Merrimack go back to residential only, and the industrial park does the loop, and they can pick it up and go up to Constitutional Way, and I think it's Constitutional, that brings you up to the north side by Target, or they can go up to 129 or Eames Street, which are all major thoroughfares in industrial parks on the north side, and create that loop that we're talking about. But also in planning, I know there is conversations with the MBTA, because I worked there, to find out what they're considering for the bridge that never went in on the west side of Anderson Station, and how that's going to play in. Because the traffic in that area has got to be developed first, in my opinion, before commercial and or residential. With that, I hope you're considering your infrastructure. You need fire stations and you need schools. Okay, you're already at the limit right now, and you're gonna be playing leapfrog one or two more times, the way I see it, with the Linscott, the Alta Vesta, and new schools being developed. Where they go, where they're located, and how it goes into the master plan is a major component in my eyes, and it's overlooked. Shame on the city of Woburn planners. That's my 2 cents.
I mean, it's just so multifaceted now, trying to plan for everything that's necessary in the city of Woburn. You look at all the growth we've had multifamily-wise in the last 10, 15 years, and then you're pretty much blindsided that, oh, by the way, now you have to accommodate the MBTA 3A multifamily program. And then just recently, you know, we've been wrestling with the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit zoning ordinance, which will, you know, over time add more housing units that we really weren't planning for or expecting. But, you know, that's the stuff. With planning, you have to be nimble, and a lot of times you have to be quick, and, you know, ready to jump over the candlestick. Really do. Trying to keep up with everything. And I think right now, Woburn's in an era, in an immediate era, where we're doing DPW. So everything's involved with planning for a city and making it stable and secure, well-financed, you know. Woburn's still in a great spot, and we all know this because we hear this all the time from our public officials, that, you know, our residential tax rate and the cost to the average resident is a lot less in Woburn than it is in our abutting communities. We know that. It's not cheap to live in Woburn anymore, but it's a lot less expensive than these other communities, and it always has been that way. And the key to that, in not all the communities, but the key to that is that we have a strong economic, strong commercial base that helps very much aiding in the cost of running a community. You know, a lot of the tax revenue, personal property tax revenue produced in the city of Woburn going towards our schools, going towards our police, fire, and DPW, helps out tremendously to have the quality of life that we have and the services, the public services that we have, that a lot of communities actually have to pay a lot more for. Just think of that burden of how much more tax revenue, you know, the community would need that would be coming out of your pocket as a resident, as opposed to a huge sharing of the cost of revenue to meet the needs of this city, being borne by both the commercial sector and the residents. So, you know, Woburn just has a tremendous amount going for itself because it's a very healthy, economic, business-friendly community that, you know, knows the true value of a strong economy relative to sharing in the tax burden requirements.
Okay, let's move on here.
Yeah.
Do we have any time-sensitive matters?
Not really, no,
Okay.
no.
Excellent. If required, updates on potential zoning ordinance or subdivision rules and regulation amendments to be discussed at future meetings?
Right now, there's a lull with zoning ordinances. We haven't received anything. Yeah, so we're in good shape there. I'm thinking, you know, we may want to tackle the subdivision regs in the not-too-distant future as far as taking a look at them and amending what we think might need to be amended. You know, that's within our purview. And if we want to, as a planning board, organize an effort to, you know, look at our subdivision regs. You know, it's interesting, they really haven't changed much in many, many years. So we might want to take a look at that as a homework assignment, you know, a next thing to take up. You know, as far as the zoning is concerned, a lot of that is under the purview of the city council. And, you know, they get requests from the private sector and they get requests from the residents, you know, of what changes might need to be implemented. So when they forward those to us, we schedule the public hearings accordingly.
Meeting schedule. Next one is set for September 9th.
Yeah, yep.
Are you okay with that? No?
Sadly, I will be out of the country, but
Okay.
as long as you have a quorum, I think you will be good.
Chairman, I just want to mention something.
Yes.
You know, if, you know, this is somewhat of a busy meeting tonight. That could have been longer if we had our main speaker come in. But I think if we get to a point where we have really busy schedules, and we've been meeting once a month, but if we get to a point where we're having, you know, busy agendas, a little bit busier than we'd want to relative to dealing with one meeting a month, I think at that point in time we could consider. But if you want to stay on that one meeting a month schedule, I think we're safe for a little while. But we can adjust as needed whenever. So I don't know if you want to meet the 9th and 2 weeks after that, that's fine with me. If you want to meet the 4th Tuesday in September, so be it too. I just want you to know too, we're in the process of hiring a new assistant planner. So we're one person short at this point, and we have been. So this lull period in the summer has really helped out trying to keep up with everything else and, you know, also schedule the planning board stuff.
So if we were gonna do one meeting in September, would we be better off like doing the 16th?
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the month?
That conflict,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, what's
that conflicts with the council.
Oh, it does, okay.
Yeah, so we'd have to go 2 or 4.
Okay, all right. So I would say if we're gonna do one meeting in September, as it stands now, we should probably stay with the 9th. And then if we have a bunch of stuff that comes up in the interim, then we have to go to 2 meetings, we can then go to the 23rd.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
And then come October, I'm guessing it's gonna get busy enough that we're gonna have to go back to the 2 meetings come then.
Yeah, October in all likelihood, because we're gonna have consultants come in about these projects, well, these plans we went over tonight. They'll actually be coming in to present at least their initial findings.
So October would be like the 7th and the 21st or something.
Yeah. And
All right, so we're gonna stick with the 9th in September. And, Claudia, you can video us from wherever you are out of the country. I mean,
Bill,
you know.
it will be the middle of the night in Switzerland, so I do not.
Okay, that's fine. You'll still be up at that. Won't you
my
still,
thoughts will
you'll
be
still
with
be
you.
up at that time, though, looking for something to do.
Very
So,
good. I'm
hey,
old. I
let
go to
me-
bed
let me
at
check
9
in with the
o'clock,
meeting.
Okay, I have the bedtime of a 9-year-old, so that's unlikely.
Well, where does that leave me?
All right, we got
We're not having a contest.
approval of minutes from May 13th, 2025, which you don't have any with you at the moment. They were sent on the computer. So hopefully you read them and went through it. So we don't have a hard,
I did not see May 13th minutes. Did I miss them?
pretty sure they were on there. The May 13th minutes?
They weren't on the Friday email.
Okay. Then we'll skip
were they sent out earlier? I don't,
no.
if they
thought they
are, we'll make sure to put them on for the next.
All right, so we're getting no
That's
approval of
fine.
it.
We can
Yeah.
do that.
All right, John, any other business?
That would be it.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other business, I would make a motion to adjourn at 8:12.
Motion by Claudia to adjourn at 8:12, second by David. All those in favor? 7-0 carries.